Hey, good morning and that. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Yeah, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. SEC preview time. Are we in week 11 already? Calendar has turned to November. Time has changed. It's going to be over before you know it. But we do this video every single Tuesday during the college football season. This is going to be an SEC preview and prediction video. I'm going to run through every single game in the SEC this week, talk a little bit about it, and give you a preview and then a prediction against the spread for that game. Of course, there's a couple of good games in the SEC this weekend, and of course, there's one great game in the SEC this weekend, LSU at Bama. We're going to talk about all of those games in today's video coming up right now. All right, as usual, all the numbers that I use in today's video, all the lines, odds, point spreads, money lines, over-unders, all those kinds of things are going to come straight from the website over at right there, betnow.eu. There's a link in the description of this video that'll take you to BetNow. This is the second year in a row I've been lucky enough to work with the good people over at betnow.eu. If you click the link in the description of this video, go on over to BetNow, get yourself signed up. They're going to give you a bonus on whatever you deposit. Make yourself some money betting on these football games. Let's go. All right, we're going to run through all these games in chronological order like we always do. So we'll start with some noon games. Of course, all the games are on Saturday, no Thursday or Friday SEC games. Those are for the lower tier conferences like the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. SEC plays when it counts, and that's on Saturdays. We're going to start at noon. We'll run through the prime time games. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. A lot of times they're even watchable. This one might be. I don't know. Stay tuned. Let me know. Anyway, let's get right to it. All right, up first, we got Vandy at Florida. Florida is a 26-point favorite in this one, and it comes on 12 o'clock over on ESPN. Vandy, probably the worst team in the SEC this year. Second worst? Third worst? In any case, well, I guess Arkansas is the worst. In any case, they're having a really bad year. Florida coming off a disappointing loss last week to Georgia, top 10 matchup, but it was a good game. They lost by 7. I still think Florida's a really good team. I still think Vanderbilt's a really, really bad team. Now, why would someone call me? What is this? Yeah, good morning in that. Huh? No. Well, you're going to have to call back later. I'm doing LouTube. Yeah, I'm very busy and important. Thank you. Telemarketing. Where were we? Vandy at Florida. I still think Florida's a really good team. I think Florida is a top 10 team. Their only 2 losses have come to 2 teams that are currently ranked in the top 6. They lost to LSU by, I think, 14. And, of course, last week lost to Georgia by 7. So I still think Florida's a really good team. They're playing at home. My only concern, if I'm looking to play Florida this week at minus 26, because I definitely think Florida's at least 26 points better than Vandy, my only concern is going to be some sort of a letdown or hangover from the emotional rivalry game loss they took last week to Georgia. I'm going to roll the dice and say that doesn't happen here. Plus, Vandy is just that bad. I think Florida will jump out to a big lead early in this game. Florida's just got too many athletes, especially on the outside with their receivers, for Vandy to be able to deal with, in my opinion. I think Florida jumps out quick in this game, gets a comfortable lead, coasts through the second half, and probably wins this game by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Give me the Gators to rebound this week, lay to 26. Speaking of really bad teams, Western Kentucky at Arkansas, 12 o'clock on the SEC Network. And believe it or not, this is one of those rare games where Arkansas is actually favored. They're a 1.5. Is that right? Jesus Christ. No, 2.5. Miracle! 2.5 point favorite at home against Western Kentucky. You know what? I can't take Arkansas and lay any amount of points at all. Is it possible Arkansas wins this game at home against a bad Western Kentucky team? Yeah, it's possible. But I think you'd have to be out of your mind at this point to lay any money on Arkansas as a favorite in any game. Not only are they terrible, the natives are getting extremely restless in Chad Morris's, is this his second year only? He's probably going to get the Willie Taggart treatment. That would be my guess. Of course, Willie Taggart fired before the end of his second season at Florida State. I will be surprised if Chad Morris is the head coach at Arkansas in 2020. It's been that bad. And the thing about Arkansas is it doesn't look like there's any light at the end of the tunnel. They're starting a different quarterback this week, Arkansas is. I think it's either the 5th or 6th different starting quarterback that Chad Morris has played in a season and a half that he's been at Arkansas. That's just not a recipe for success. They're not recruiting well. They're in a tough division. It's hard to see where the light at the end of the tunnel is right now for Arkansas. For whatever reason, it looks like Chad Morris is just not working out there. I get it that he's only in year 2, but come on, no improvement at all from last year to this year. Can't settle on a QB, can't recruit, can't beat anyone really in the SEC. They are the doormat of the SEC right now. Worse than Tennessee, worse than Vandy, worse than any of the Mississippi schools, worse than any team you could possibly name. They're that bad, and it doesn't look like it's getting better anytime soon. If I had to put my money on one SEC coach being fired at the end of this year, it would be Chad Morris. I can't lay the points. Give me Western Kentucky and those 2.5. All right, that brings us to the big one at 3:30. LSU undefeated on the road at undefeated Alabama. This one comes on 3:30 on CBS, and Alabama is currently a 6-point favorite. This game has floated around the last couple of days anywhere from 5.5 to a full 7 points. I will be surprised if this line ever goes over 7. I think it'll probably end at 6 or 6.5, just under a touchdown. This is this week's game of the century, right? We're going to have a lot of these games of the quote-unquote games of the century over the next couple of weeks. You got Ohio State, Penn State coming up. You're going to have other great games. Oklahoma and Baylor are both undefeated. That ain't no game of the century. Anyway, you get the idea. We're getting into November. There's going to be a ton of big games. None bigger right now, though, than LSU at Alabama. Depending on which poll you believe, these are 2 of the best 2 teams in America, 2 of the best 3 teams in America, or 2 of the best 4 teams in America. But literally every poll you look at has both these 2 teams in the top 4. Should be a great game. LSU's looking for revenge. Really about 8 years worth of revenge. Last year, a disappointing performance for LSU last year against Alabama at home for LSU, getting shut out 29-0. I thought their defense played pretty well. You look at Alabama's offense last year and how many points they scored in most games. You hold Alabama to 29 points. That's not too bad last year, especially considering LSU's offense couldn't even get a first down, really, in that game. Defense still played well. Look at this year. LSU's got no problems offensively, at least so far. It's probably the most dramatic offensive turnaround I think I've ever seen in one season. To go from what LSU had offensively last year, the style of football they were playing last year, the points they scored per game last year, all those kinds of things, to where they're at now in just one season is got to be one of the greatest turnarounds in all of college football. We talk a lot about Oklahoma's defense and how much they've improved this year. It's been hard for me to beat that drum after what happened with Kansas State, but generally speaking, Oklahoma's defense has made a miraculous turnaround in 1 year's time. They haven't made the turnaround that LSU's offense has made, though. Oklahoma went from having one of the worst defenses in America to having what I think is legitimately a top 35-ish, top 40-ish defense. They were 110, 115 in every defensive category known to man last year, so that's a huge improvement. But you look at LSU's offense, pitiful really for the last 5-6 years. Couldn't score a point against Alabama last year. Just a really bad offense, a sort of a boring, grounded-out style of football. They've completely turned that around this year. They're top 5 in almost every offensive category: passing, total yards, points per game. Joe Burrow is a legitimate Heisman candidate. They've got NFL wide receivers. Now, their defense appears not to be playing at the level this year that we're used to seeing them play. I think some of that is the change in offense, right? They're scoring a lot quicker. The defense is having to get back out on the field a lot quicker. I think that does take its toll over the course of a game and the course of a season. I also think that, generally speaking, LSU's defense just isn't quite at the level, talent-wise, that it was last year. That's not a knock on LSU's defensive talent. They've still got top 10 defensive talent, at top 15 at the worst. So I think a lot of what you're seeing with LSU's defense can be attributed to the style of offense that they're playing, but not all of it. I mean, I do think LSU had a better defense last year. Forget about the styles of offense. But anyway, this is going to be a great game. Tua's ankle, is he 100%? Is he 80%? Is he 90%? Are they going to try to protect him some kind of way? Are they going to limit some of the RPO type stuff that he likes to do? Or the option stuff that he likes to run? Or in other words, are they going to tell him not to run the ball? Are they going to have to leave, or are they going to choose to leave tight ends or running backs in to help pass protect to try to keep him from being hit in this game. These are things none of us know. We'll have to watch the game and find out. I find it hard to believe that he's going to be 100% for this game just because of the surgery that he had and the quick turnaround that he's trying to make here. Does that mean he's not healthy enough to play? I can only trust and assume that the medical staff and the coaching staff at Alabama is putting his health and safety ahead of Alabama's want, need, or desire to win this game. I'm sure he's going to play. We'll see. I hope he's 100% healthy. You never want to see any college players get hurt or injured, but the reality is it just happens every single year to every single team. But when you have a game of this magnitude, this late in the season, 2 top 5 teams, a rivalry game, you want both teams at 100%. If you're a college football fan, and that's what I am, you want both these teams to be at 100%. You want to see them go at it, and you want to see the best team win. That's not to make any excuse for Alabama if they happen to lose or if Tua happens to have to come out of the game or anything. That's part of football. You play in November. Every single team is dealing with varying degrees of injuries to certain players. Some are able to play through it depending on the injury. Some aren't. I hope he's able to play. I hope he's 100%. I'm not a Tua or an Alabama fan, but like I said, you watch a game of this magnitude, you want the teams to be at their best when they play. I do think this is going to be a good game. I'm going to be honest with you. The only outcome that would surprise me here is a blowout. I do not expect like another 29-0 beat down like we saw last year with Alabama coming out on top. I don't expect LSU to win 48-20 or anything like that. I think this is going to legitimately be a good game. A couple of these big games that we've seen this year have actually lived up to the hype in terms of being close, exciting games at the end. Texas LSU, Georgia, Florida this past weekend. Some other ones have not quite turned out that way. Ohio State, Wisconsin ended up being not a close game, for example. Texas, Oklahoma, I guess, was an okay game. But anyway, again, as a college football fan, I'm hoping for a good close game here. My honest thoughts and opinions, no trolling or any of that type of stuff here on these two teams, just from watching a lot of football this year, LSU has looked like a better overall team to me. LSU's offense appears to me to be almost as good as Alabama's. Almost. I still think Alabama has the better wide receivers, although that's marginal. I do think Jerry Jeudy's the best college receiver in America, and I don't think LSU has anybody that's on his level, and they've got 2 or 3 other NFL wide receivers too, but I truly believe LSU does as well. Burrow has been playing every bit as good as Tua. He can run around same as Tua can. He's healthier than Tua, so maybe that gives him some sort of an advantage or gives LSU an advantage in this game. Defensively, I still think Alabama has a little bit of a better defense than LSU, both talent-wise and how they're playing so far this year. Now, Alabama has had some games where the defense has looked shaky. They gave up a ton of points to South Carolina. A couple other games where they looked sort of iffy. But the same can be said for LSU. But again, throw all the stats and all that out the window. Just when I watch these two teams play, Alabama appears to have a little bit of a better defense. Overall, though, I think LSU has been the better team. If this game was in LSU, I think it would be pretty easy to pick LSU to win this game. I know what happened last year doesn't matter and has no effect, impact, or bearing on this year's game, at least in a perfect world. Now, do some of the players from LSU remember last year's game? Yes. Will they use it as motivation, or will they go into this game thinking they can't win because they just haven't in so long? I don't know. I wanted to pick LSU in this game because, like I said, I feel that they've been the better team. I just don't know if I can pick LSU to win outright here at Alabama. Like I said, if this game was at LSU, I don't think it would be so hard for me to pick here. But I do think 6 points might be too much. I expect this to be a close game. I'm going to take LSU in those 6 points. I think LSU has a chance to win this game. I'm not confident enough to play LSU on the money line and pick them to win outright, but I could see this being a field goal type of game, and actually that favors LSU. Alabama's kicking situation is a disaster for the umpteenth time or the umpteenth year in a row. I don't understand. They recruit the #1 high school kicker in America out of high school. The guy can't miss. He shows up in Tuscaloosa and can't make a kick. It's just the weirdest thing. So this could be the game. It seems like people have been saying forever, one of these years, this kicking situation is going to bite Bama in the butt. It almost bit them in the national title game in 2017. Maybe this is the game where that catches them and they get a loss. Does it matter who loses this game? It may end up not mattering. Both of these teams are going to have legitimate arguments to make at the end of the season that they should be playoff teams, no matter who loses, unless it's a blowout, right? If this is a 7 or 10 point game or less, whoever loses this game is going to have a strong argument for the college football playoff at the end of the regular season. Now, obviously, whether the loser of this game gets in or not depends a lot on what happens with teams like Oklahoma, what happens with Oregon and Utah in the Pac-12. What about a second Big Ten team? What if Ohio State beats Penn State, but that ends up being Penn State's only loss, and you've got an 11-1 Penn State versus an 11-1 LSU if they lose this weekend, or an 11-1 Alabama if they lose. So it's going to get very interesting at the end of the year. I don't think the loser of this game is necessarily out of the college football playoff unless they lose by more than 10 points or a couple of touchdowns, which I don't see happening. I think both these teams are going to have a case for the playoff at the end of the season. I hope this is a great game. I think it will be. Give me the corn dog and the 6 points. All right, New Mexico State at Ole Miss. Nobody cares about this one, but Ole Miss is favored by 24 in this game. 4 o'clock on the SEC network. New Mexico State is a terrible team. Ole Miss almost pulled off a big upset last week on the road at Auburn. It came down to the end. They ended up, they lose that game 20-14. So a touchdown at the end would have tied it up. Extra point would have won it. They got to about the 50-ish yard line and just sort of ran out of time there with John Reese Plumlee running around, or Rice, whatever the hell his name is, running around trying to make some plays and just couldn't do it. So Auburn hung on for a win. Ole Miss will rebound this week. They'll get the win for sure against New Mexico State at home. I don't fully trust Ole Miss's defense still. They held Auburn to 20. Offensively, though, Auburn has had some serious issues this year. I'm going to take Ole Miss in this game anyway, though. I think Ole Miss can score in the 40s in this game, and I'm not sure if New Mexico State can get to the 20s, which is, I think, what they would have to do to cover that 24. This is a lot of points to lay with Ole Miss. I'm going to roll the dice here. Give me Ole Miss late at 24. Missouri at Georgia. This one comes on 7 o'clock on ESPN, night game at UGA. So Bama fans, after your LSU game is over, make sure you tune into this Georgia-Missouri game and you see what a real light show looks like. Alabama has that Griswold's Christmas Vacation light show there at Bryant-Denny. They plug the thing in, nothing happens. Hashtag Big Lots Light Show. Shout out to all the Gumps out there. But yeah, tune in. Georgia's got an amazing light show. I think you'll enjoy it, especially after you suffer through that light show that they're making you watch over there at Bryant-Denny and that. Anyway, Mizzou at Georgia. Georgia off a big win against Florida last week. We talked about that when we previewed the Vandy Florida game. They won 24-17 in Jacksonville over Florida. Top 10 win for the Dogs. So a good win there. They got to turn around real quick, though. Missouri's a dangerous team. Now, they've been up and down, right? They lost to Wyoming week 1, and they reeled off 5 or 6 wins in a row. And then their last 2 games, they've lost to 2 of the worst teams in the SEC. They lost to, what did they lose to? Was it Vandy and Kentucky? No. Jesus Christ. No bowl game for Missouri this year. This is their bowl game. Let's be real. They're going to put everything they have into this game. They're coming off a bye week, so they've had an extra week to prepare for this game, to get healthy, whatever the case may be. Georgia's coming off a big emotional win against Florida, but Georgia's got no room for error. I mean, Georgia's in a good position right now. They went out, they win the East, punched their ticket to Atlanta, roll the dice for a shot at the playoffs there. That's Georgia's plan right now, but they've got no room for error. They cannot lose another game. Even if they lose one other game, they'll probably still win the East, but that will just destroy any playoff hopes or chances that they have, I think, anyway. So they've got to win this game. They can't afford to come out sleepwalking in this game. Cannot afford that. They got to come out ready to go in the first quarter. Kelly Bryant's an experienced quarterback. We can argue or debate about how good, great, or average he is or isn't or whatever. That's not the point. He's got a ton of experience. He's not going to be intimidated by a Georgia crowd at night. Now, that doesn't mean that the crowd can't have some effect on the game. We've seen that all year long at home games for Georgia, multiple delays of games and false starts and coaches not able to get plays in time. The Georgia home crowd has been great this year. I expect that again from the crowd, especially coming off that big win at Florida. But Georgia cannot come out flat in this game. I would like to see Georgia build on what they did last week at Florida. Georgia, over the last couple of years, has tended to play their best football in the month of November. Georgia hasn't lost a game in November since the Auburn game in 2017. Yeah, so it's been a while. Didn't lose one last year. Won our last couple of November and December games in 17. Won them all in all the November games in 18. Here we are in 19. But they got to come out ready to roll here. I think they will. I think they're going to take care of business and handle Missouri. I really do. They played a great game last week against Florida. Fromm played probably the best game of his career, in my opinion. I think that was the first game that Jake Fromm has won for the University of Georgia. That's not to take anything away from all the other wins Georgia has gotten while Fromm has been the quarterback, but the knock on Fromm has always been, if you can make him throw the ball more than 30 times, you're likely to win. If you can hold Georgia to under 4 yards per carry, you're likely to win. Well, Florida held Georgia to about 3.5 yards per carry, and Georgia won. It's the first time that's happened under Jake Fromm. Usually you hold Georgia to 3.5 yards rushing, and Georgia has to count on Fromm to win the game, and we've been unable to do that for whatever reason. Whether that's Fromm's fault or not, I'm not getting into that in this video. But I think that's the first game you can point to and say, Fromm won that game, because we struggled running the ball for the majority of that game. Now, the defense played great. They deserve a ton of credit, too. One of the best defenses in America Georgia has this year. It's unbelievable to watch Georgia's defense. Still the only team in America not to give up a rushing touchdown. The only Power 5 team in the last 20 years to go 10 weeks into the season without giving up a rushing touchdown. We still haven't given up more than 2 touchdowns in a game to any offense. Not a single one. Not Florida, not Notre Dame, not Tennessee, South Carolina, these other teams we played. We've held every opposing team to 2 touchdowns or less, 0 rushing touchdowns. The defense, unbelievable, but Fromm played great in the Florida game. The run game was shut down. You got to give Fromm credit for the Florida game. I want to see us build on that. I would be disappointed if we came out in this game and did nothing but ran the ball against an overmatched Missouri defense. I want to see us continue to progress in the passing game. I think it's very important when you look at some of the games Georgia has down the road. We can clown Auburn all we want about their offense. Their front 4, their front 7 will probably be the best front 4 or front 7 that Georgia has faced this year. Now, Florida's got a great front 4, front 7 too, and we couldn't run on them. I don't expect to go into Auburn and just run it down their throat in a couple of weeks. I think we're going to have to throw the ball to win that game at Auburn. We did it against Florida. Let's continue to build on that this week. Cager looks amazing. Eli Wolf, of course, with a couple of catches. Let's get the younger guys a little bit more involved. Pickens, Blaylock. I'm a little surprised we're not using Demetrius Robertson a little bit more. So I'd like to see us continue to move that passing game forward a little bit in this Missouri game, getting ready for this final stretch of games that we have: Texas A&M, Auburn, Georgia Tech to close out the season, and then hopefully, unless we completely blow it, the SEC championship game in December. Georgia's a 17.5-point favorite here. I'm going to take Georgia and lay to 17.5, and I don't normally do that, so forget the homer comments we're going to see in the comment section. I have taken the opposing team and the points about half the time with Georgia this year. I did it week 1 against Vandy. I did it this past week with Florida. I took Florida and, 7 points? I took Florida into 7 points. Several times I've taken the other team and the points. I'm never going to pick Georgia to lose, obviously, but sometimes I think they're going to have a hard time covering certain spreads against certain teams. I like Georgia here at 17.5. I think they can win this game by 3 touchdowns. Missouri, nowhere near the best offense we played this year, I don't think, and I already talked about how no one has scored more than 2 touchdowns against us. Let's assume Missouri can find a way to score those 2 touchdowns and maybe even get a field goal or 2. That would put them at 20 points. I can see Georgia getting to 40 here, winning this game something like 42-17. That would cover the 17.5. That's the way I'm going to go here. Give me the dogs, lay to 17.5 and that. App State at South Carolina, and this one could get ugly for Will Muschamp. It seems like a lot of South Carolina fans are waiting to jump on Will Muschamp. it almost seemed like they wanted to do it last week against Vandy, but South Carolina found a way to win that game. I think it was 24-7 or something. App State is a totally different animal than Vanderbilt. App State is a really good team. They were undefeated. They lost last week to Georgia Southern, who's not a very good team. I think App State got caught looking ahead to this game. There was a lot of talk starting to go around about App State being maybe the group of 5 team that would find its way to a New Year's Six Bowl. Maybe they started listening to some of that. Maybe they looked ahead to this South Carolina game instead of focusing on Georgia Southern. In any case, they lost at home. They turn around this week and they play on the road at South Carolina. South Carolina's a 5-point favorite in this one, and it comes on 7 o'clock on ESPN2. So it comes on the same time my Georgia Bulldogs come on, but I will have it on one of the TVs out here. I will be keeping an eye on that game. I think this is a very dangerous game, not just for South Carolina, but for Will Muschamp. I don't think Will Muschamp is going to get fired this season, but if he loses this game and finds a way to lose the remaining games on his schedule, which of course end with Clemson at the end of the year, they might pull the trigger. I'm not sure. I'm still leaning towards them not firing Will Muschamp this year, but the fans are out of patience, and a loss to App State is going to send them over the edge. This is a tough game for me to pick. App State is going to put everything they have into this game. This is their, Missouri Super Bowl. They can't play in a bowl game. Their Super Bowl is Georgia this week. App State, with that loss, there's a couple of Power 5 teams ahead of them. I don't know if App State can make it to a New Year's Six Bowl and be that group of 5 team that gets in. If they lose to South Carolina, they definitely won't. They're going to put everything they have into this game. I think this is going to be a close game, too. I don't think South Carolina can blow App State out. I'm going to take App State in the 5 points. I think it's possible App State can win this game. I'm going to bank on them at least keeping it close, maybe a field goal game. So no hate for South Carolina, or at least that's not why I'm making this pick here. I legitimately feel like this is a very dangerous game for South Carolina. Give me App State and those 5 points in that. All right, last and, well, yeah, it is least. Tennessee at Kentucky, 7 o'clock on the SEC Network. Another one that I think is going to be a really good game. Tennessee's been playing its best football over the last couple of weeks, really that we've seen it play since probably 2016. Some of that, I think, is a product of who they've played, but I think we got to give some credit here. Tennessee looks like a better team today than they were when they kicked off the season against Georgia State. Now, we can't just pretend that didn't happen. We can't just pretend they didn't lose to Georgia State and BYU and get blown out by Florida and Georgia and Alabama. I mean, I'm not trying to suggest that we forget all those things happened, but I think if you've watched Tennessee play a little bit over the last couple of weeks versus the beginning of the season, I think it's fair to say they look at least a little bit better than they did at the beginning of the year, right? And more importantly, they think they're better. And that matters. Confidence matters. And Tennessee, I'm talking about the team now, didn't have a whole lot of confidence going into the season. They definitely didn't have a whole lot of confidence coming out of the Georgia State and BYU games. But it looks like they're the beginning, at least, to develop a little bit of confidence. And a confident team can be a dangerous team. Not overconfident, but enough confidence. The right amount of confidence can be a dangerous team. Kentucky, on the other hand, is really reeling. A big season last year with the 10 wins, a big-time bowl game, a big bowl win. They lose Josh Allen and Benny Snell. High hopes for this year, and it just hasn't panned out. They've had tons of issues at the quarterback position. Terry Wilson goes down with an injury. The other guy they bring in didn't really offer them much. Lately, they've been playing a wide receiver, Lynn Bowden Jr. at quarterback, which, I mean, I get it, sort of, but the thing is, he's your best playmaker on offense as a wide receiver. I think it hurt Kentucky overall to have to do that. Yes, he was good last week and ran for 200 yards or whatever it was, but overall, Kentucky would be better off if they could put Lynn Bowden back on the outside and find a quarterback that could throw him the ball, right? This is a tough one to pick here. Picking Tennessee on the road is a dangerous proposition. They're still not where they need to be. It's not like Tennessee is a super talented team that just had some bad losses in the beginning of the year. I mean, they're not a great team, but Kentucky isn't either. But Tennessee is a road favorite here, and it's hard to imagine under any circumstances going with Tennessee as a road favorite. but I'm going to do it here. I'm going to take Tennessee. The thing is only 1 point. Is it 1 or 1.5? Depending on where you look. It's 1 right now on Bet Now. 1 point. So basically a pick 'em. And really what they're telling you is that they think Tennessee is the better team because generally speaking, Vegas will give about 3 points to the home team right off the bat. So this is at Kentucky. Tennessee's a 1 point favorite. That kind of tells you what they think overall about these two teams. I probably won't bet this game because it's too dangerous to me to take Tennessee as a favorite on the road right now. But I also can't take Kentucky. But for the purposes of picking it for this video, I'm going to roll with the Vols and lay that 1 point. All right, Nat, that's it for the preview and predictions for this week for the SEC. Don't forget the live show coming up tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's a call-in show. We do it every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and then we do it Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. I take phone calls from all over. We have a pretty good time on that live show. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, make sure you do that tonight. Morning show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. in the morning. Appreciate you guys watching. Be sure and let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think about these games here? Obviously, LSU Bama is the big one, so give us your prediction down below. Who wins? If it's Bama, are you laying the 6? You think Bama wins by more than 6? Are you taking LSU in the points but think Bama wins close? Let us know down in the comments. And any chance of an upset this week? Could Georgia go down to Mizzou? Any way Vandy beats Florida? Let me know down in the comments. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. for the call-in show. Have a good morning.